This is my 2015 Nissan Leaf. It is a fully electric car that I purchased 3 years ago. When I got it, it had 13,000 miles on it, and now it has just over 37,000 miles on it. I made a video about a year ago that covered a lot of my concerns with having an electric car and the learning curve associated with it, so I'll link that above. It has now been 3 years that I've had my fully electric Nissan Leaf. Actually a little over 3 years because it was too cold to do this a few months ago. But over those 3 years I've definitely gotten a lot more comfortable with driving an electric car. One of my main concerns was always, of course, nobody wants to wake up and have their car not start. So I got up one day for work, got ready, jumped in the car, and hit the button to turn the car on, and the screen lit up, but it had an error message on it, and the car did not turn on completely. And it made a couple little clicking noises underneath, and I wasn't sure what was wrong, but the screen said T/M error, take to the dealership, and I was like, oh no. This is exactly what I have been dreading. So I was going to be late for work. I had to jump out of the car and ran inside, and luckily Pat was home, so he drove me to work really quickly. And the whole day that I was at work, I was just thinking, like, what is wrong with my car? How are we going to fix this? And hopefully it's not going to be super expensive. I could see that the actual battery that the car runs off of was fully charged, so that was okay, and that made me feel a little bit better. And I went online and did a little bit of research and found out that it could be the 12-volt battery. When I was at work doing research to try to figure out what could possibly be wrong with the car, at lunch I went to check my email, and funny enough, that day an email came from the dealership where I bought the car, and it said, "Happy 3-year car anniversary." And at that point I was pretty irritated because the car that was supposed to get me to work hadn't done that. But I would say in the span of having the car for 3 years, having one day when it didn't start is actually pretty good in terms of reliability. Now this particular week in January it was especially cold, and we figured it was probably a little rough on the battery. We popped the hood and looked at it, and sure enough, it was a little corroded, and it looked like it might be the original 5-year-old battery, so we were hoping that was the issue. We picked up the new battery. What was it, like 150 something? Yeah. Which was surprising to me. I didn't realize batteries cost that much, but Pat said the battery for his Jeep was like 200. So
funny though, I didn't even think about that. The car that has nothing but batteries has just the normal
another battery. Yeah.
I was like, all right. I just never.
I didn't think about it either.
I didn't
really
look or think about it. But
and the guy had to actually check the battery. We brought the old one in, and he double checked it. In the computer, it had the positive and the negative flipped the other way, and then he looked at our old battery and he was like, oh nope, that's not the right one on the computer. So he had to switch it for the other one. Good thing he checked, because that would have saved us like doing the whole like run back to the automotive store.
Well, it's funny, even you switching out a battery, it's not that hard, but even the terminals themselves, you have to make sure they have the right thickness.
Well, because your car, the terminals they didn't fit.
Yeah.
They were too small.
Little stuff you wouldn't think about. Best to always take a picture if you're not sure of how it was placed in there. You can always go back. In the days of having that, like we said, that $50 battery are kind of gone because there's so many electronics. So you're going to have to spend some money.
Yeah. So, I forgot to plug my car in last night. It was just dumb. I was cooking dinner and I thought, oh, don't forget to plug your car in. And sure enough. So I woke up at 6 in the morning because it was pouring rain, and The first thing that popped into my head was, crap, I didn't plug my car in. I made it to work, and I think I was getting nervous about nothing. It actually did really well, so I still have 54%. I'll be pretty good to get home. Yeah, pretty impressive for just charging it for a couple hours. Now, it wasn't empty, like I said. It was, oh gosh, I'm not even sure what it was at, but just from driving to and from work on Friday, whatever was left after that, plus that hour and 15 minutes or so of charging, so not bad, Leaf. I made it home, barely. I think the battery is the lowest it's ever been right now, so that yellow exclamation point right there comes up when the battery is really low, but here you can see underneath the gas tank is just blinking. I've actually never seen that before. So I was nervous pulling in that I didn't even know if I was going to make it up to the tiny house. It kind of went from, I think it was at 8 last time I saw it, and then next time I looked down, it was just blinking lines, and I was like, oh no. But it made it. So we'll see. It's pretty cold tonight. Oh, it's 29 degrees right now. Jeez. So it's going to take a little bit longer probably to charge tonight, but hopefully we'll have enough charge by tomorrow when I have to go to work. One of my favorite things about the Leaf, of course, is that the maintenance is just less. So a lot of people have asked me what kind of maintenance you have to do, and changing the wiper blades, topping off fluids like windshield wiper fluid are like the main things. And then you also have to check the brake fluid or have the brake fluid changed regularly according to the owner's manual. So those are kind of the main things. I don't have to get inspection because New Jersey only does emissions, so I don't have to get my car inspected. I don't have an inspection sticker on my car anymore. They actually took it off for me. So I really enjoy not having to get oil changes and having to do some of the more regular maintenance that you would have with a gas vehicle. One of the things that I did the most recently was put new tires on. And they say with electric vehicles, the overall maintenance is definitely a lot less, but the weak point, or the place that you're probably going to have to put most of your attention, is into the tires. If you keep the tires in good working condition, the car is going to do pretty well. One of the questions that comes up regularly is how the Leaf does in winter driving conditions, and this year was a pretty good test for the Leaf. We've had a few ice storms like this one. We've had a few inches of snow on several different occasions. So this year the Leaf really got to work through the snow, and I would say overall it really does pretty well. As long as the snow isn't too deep, I found the traction to be pretty good, especially after I got new tires. All right. Driving to work in an ice storm. Do I look happy? A lot of people ask how the Leaf does in the winter and bad weather, so today's probably the test because everything's covered in ice. We're starting at 77 miles on the battery, 100%, and the temperature outside is 28. Alright, made it to work, thank goodness. 59 miles left on the battery, still about 27 degrees, and it has now switched to like freezing rain, a little bit of like tiny pieces of hail. So, not the greatest, and we'll see what this looks like in 8 hours because I think it's supposed to keep doing wintry stuff all day. I think the car actually handled well. I feel like most of the time I'm fairly confident in the Leaf's ability to drive in winter weather. Now, considering we live on a coastal plain, so everything is flat, that makes a huge difference. But I just go slow and leave extra stopping time and all that stuff like you would normally drive in winter weather. The thing that I am more concerned about when I drive in this kind of stuff is the other drivers, because even on the parkway, people were still speeding, people were changing lanes quickly, not leaving enough distance. I was being tailgated. people just don't think that the driving conditions are going to impact what's going to happen. And sure enough, there was a car accident, a pretty good head-on collision on one of the side roads because somebody probably lost traction. But if it wasn't for the other drivers, I would feel decently confident in the Leaf's ability to handle this sort of stuff. Okay, well, less than 8 hours later, a lot of my patients canceled because the weather's pretty gross right now. It's like a slushy, icy, rainy mix, and hopefully I'm getting out in time that the roads aren't too icy, but we'll see as we start driving. Okay, we made it. So we have 30 miles left on the battery. It's a little warmer. It's 32 degrees now. I luckily got to leave at the warmest part of the day, so the roads were a little bit better, but I'm pretty proud of the Leaf. I feel like it did a good job handling some rough circumstances today. Oh, hello. Hello, dog. Okay, so hopefully Pat has the wood stove going because it is damp and cold. In the last video, one of the topics that came up a lot in the comments was the environmental impact of having an electric car. And I will be the first person to admit that an electric car is not a perfect solution. The only really pure good solution would be to not drive. That's the only way that you're not consuming energy and creating some sort of output that would have an impact on the environment. But the reality is that I have a job and I have to go to work, and public transportation is not viable in the area that I live in. So I had to do my research and really think about what type of driving I have to do and if gas versus electric really truly was having a better impact on the environment or less of an impact on the environment. And to me, the idea that some of the electricity that I can use for driving does come from renewable resources like solar and wind. I know that the battery itself and the components of the battery do have an environmental toll in terms of mining and things like that, but the idea is that in the long term, as there are more electric cars, they're going to get better and better at recycling the batteries. I was actually just reading an article about a company that's going to be able to take 100% of the materials in an electric car battery, strip them, separate them, and then create a new battery without adding any extra components. So that is a huge step forward in making electric vehicles more viable as a good option to have a lower impact on the environment for those of us who have to drive. My final point is that I'm happy that I have the Leaf. I'm enjoying the process of having the electric car, and I think the financial perspective of it has been great, especially in a year where finances have been a very challenging topic with the pandemic. Not having to buy gas has been a helpful thing in the scope of this year, but my main concern at this point is the longevity of the vehicle, and that's just going to be like a wait and see thing. I've had it for 3 years, it's a little over 5 years old, and we're just going to have to see over the next several years how well it holds up to my daily driving. And in the long run, the money that I put into it versus the years of use that I get out of it. And that's also going to have an impact on how sustainable this whole process of switching to electric vehicles is going to be. I had my last car for 15 years. I have very strong doubts that this is going to last the same 15 years that my Subaru did, but I'll keep you guys updated on how things go over the next couple of years.
You worried about you and me, the injustice, the next president to be, the news and what you hear, your career. It's time for you to face those fears, and it's all fair to be aware, and I'll be there, so don't be scared. 1, 2, 3 to 10. You begin to focus again, and though time flies, we'll have enough to realize this bigger than the both of us.